we grow our own health on a shoestring, there will always be enough. If we grow our own socks on worm dog poo, there will always be enough. If we eat our weeds like a plant does seeds, there will always be enough. If we all care for our insects and worms, there will always be enough. Over and under, insects and worms, insects and worms. If we keep balance, the world turns and turns. Over and under, over and under, over and under, and all around. There'll always be enough. Over and under, insects and worms, insects and worms. If we keep balance, the world turns and turns. Over and under, over and under, over and under, and all around. There will always be enough. If we grow easy mint, we will never be skint, and it gives us get up and go. If we grow little barn, it keeps us calm from our head down to our toe. Eat Orange King and let's all sing of how it heals our skin. Sturgeon and chive, they make us jive, and then we'll all be thin. Over and under, over and under, over and under, and all around. If we keep balance, the world turns and turns. Over and under, over and under, over and under, and all around. There'll always be enough.
Well, thank you very much. That's the Jane and Mike band there, singing Over and Under. And strangely enough, it's Jane and Mike in the studio right now. So this is Mike here, just in case you're not too clear which one of us is which. And, Jane, introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Jane Wood. Yes, that's me. That's
Well,
brilliant.
we are going to talk about yesterday, aren't we, Jane? Because
Yes,
we
we are.
did something unusual, something we haven't done before.
Yes.
And we went to talk to somebody and see something, and mostly it was all rubbish, wasn't it?
Yes,
Loads of
I
rubbish.
say it was a trip to the rubbish tip, but it wasn't a rubbish trip. It was really, really good and interesting and fascinating, and set my mind whirring on ways that we can help Salford City Council, help the Greater Manchester City Council, and thus, if we are contributing to the wealth of the cities of Manchester, then hopefully we can have a better future using our money in the most efficient way. And that is using rubbish in the most efficient way.
Well, we'll talk all about that, but what I'd like to say is we went down to what is in effect South Manchester, Sharston, near Wythenshawe, but that rubbish recycling plant there is for Greater Manchester. And the woman was telling us that, you know, the bins sometimes are different. Like in Salford, we've got a bin that you can put your grass cuttings in that's black with a pink lid. Now, being Salford, of course, that's very unusual. Nobody else has got that. In Manchester, they've got a green bin. But it's the same stuff, and it all arrives at this recycling plant. They put it all together, and they try and do something useful with it. But, I mean, you mentioned the tip. Strictly speaking, the tip was next door. wasn't it?
Yes.
And that was the place. And it was busy. Cars were rushing in, rushing out, and people were dropping stuff off. And one of the things that was explained to us was that a lot of things that can't be recycled through the recycling plant that we saw can still be useful. So, like all your electrical goods, don't put them in the bin, take them to the tip, but then they'll be sent to somebody who will look at them, take them apart, and maybe find something useful in them. So that's the real clever bit, isn't it? It's working out which bits can actually go in the bin and get recycled down at the recycling plant. And that's the big message for today, really, because sometimes you get a little leaflet and it lists the kind of things. And, I mean, for example, I learned a lot because I thought when it said plastics, you put the plastic in the brown bin in Salford. That's what we do. And what she had to explain to us was things like yoghurt pots, they can't do anything with them.
You know that. I've been collecting yoghurt pots and keeping them out of the plastics for years and years and years. And they are my pet worm, vegan, rescue worm hotels.
Yeah, exactly. That's your hobby. I didn't know you were doing it because you've been told to.
Oh, didn't you?
No, you never do what you're told.
It's good we meet up like this, Mike.
We can exchange information while we're
yes,
here.
Yes.
Yeah. So she was telling us yoghurt pots have to go in the black bin.
You've never put a yoghurt pot in the black bin.
No, I give them to you. That's right.
And what I did was take all the things that I know I want to rescue from the black bin, because the minimum amount that's in the black bin, because the black bin costs money, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The black bin doesn't get much money out of it. They do make the best use of that resource.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't like that either, do they? Because she was telling us that it gets sent out to Bolton or Wigan, out that way. Warrington.
Runcorn, she said.
Well, I saw in that direction. And it all gets minced up and then burned.
Yeah.
Now, the only good thing about that is that generates heat and makes electricity.
Yeah, but she did say there were filters on the burning, on the... so the bad stuff wasn't going out into the air.
No, but that's the worry, isn't it? I mean, would you like to live next to a giant chimney?
Well, it's horrible in Runcorn, isn't it?
No, Runcorn, if you drive down the M56 motorway, you look over to the right, you see all these wind turbines on the marshes.
Yes,
loads of them.
Yes, there are, yes.
So that's a good use of the space.
We took photos of them when we went to Wales, didn't we?
And
what did you do with those photos?
Exactly, they're on the computer somewhere. But the good thing about those wind turbines is right next door to them are the pylons from the power station down the road, which is probably gas or something, isn't it? It's not reusable at all. But you can see renewable energy and old-fashioned energy side by side. It's a good example.
Yeah.
So anyway, as far as we're concerned, that black bin stuff, all the stuff that they can't recycle or find a use for, and it's a bit
costs us money, the council taxpayers money.
Yeah, to get rid of.
Yeah.
Even though the electricity generates a little bit of cash, it no way pays for the collection. So that's something, isn't it?
And they send it on a train. We didn't know that either.
No, we didn't know. The recycling plant is next to the old train line that goes from Stockport to Altrincham, around the back there. And you don't see any passenger trains going down that way mostly these days, unless they need to make a connection.
So they have really thought about how best to use our rubbish, haven't they? And but they need us to help big time.
I think that's what they said. That's what they said at the beginning, the middle, and the end,
and all the way through, actually.
Because I was always under the impression that you put stuff in the bin, and down at some recycling plant, somebody was looking at a conveyor belt and picking out the cans and putting them in one place, picking out the bottles, putting them in another place. And basically this woman said, well, they can't do that. It's too expensive. There's no way they can find enough people to do the sorting. So the only people who can do the sorting is us people before we decide to put stuff in the bin. So putting it in the right bin is the key to everything.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's going to be detailed now, isn't it? Shall we have a piece of music?
Well, yes, it's
And
a
then-
story. Oh, well, we'll play it first and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then we'll explain what
It might be a surprise to us too. Okay, so I'm going to wind it up and see if... and we'll tell you who the people are after and what the song's about if we can figure it out. Let's see. Because it's people that we know and I've actually played with them.
Out here in the distance, out here in the heart, out here at the edge, hear the sweet dark mellow larks. Out here we fear nothing, out here heed no call, out here we are kings, on thrones untouchable. Now the sun is just a husk, a crisp and fragile shell. Dust has turned to rust, like flowers with no smell. My eyes begin to water, my tongue's no taste to test. My vision growing weaker, my heart upon my chest, like into a ball. And I close my senses down. Now I only feel stable with my face pressed to the ground. Like a kid, like a beetle, I'm all bound up, like a beetle. It is free time, don't resist it. Join along with us and feel no sickness. There is wisdom even in it. Staring hard, but see no blues. Keep on fishing, keep on dreaming. Out here in the distance, out here in the heart, out here at the edge, hear the sweet dark mellow larks, sweet dark mellow larks, sweet dark mellow larks.
you very much. Thank you very much. The Hanami family. Now, just to say a few words about them, they're, you wouldn't believe there's only 2 of them, would you? Because they've made this record.
I think there's a lot of musicians involved as well.
So they've brought in a lot of pals to play the other bits of bongo and guitar and that. But they're very clever. They're actually a bit like the Jane and Mike band live, because there's a big tall man who plays the guitar, and there's a young lady
with a
who plays the
beard
drum.
and sandy hair, even. But he's a lot taller than you, Mike. It's reverse, really.
Yes, the tall one, the short one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things about them is they're very clever, because they put all sorts of things in their song, and it's not always obvious what it's about. They were singing a song on Sunday, we saw them, and it was all about numbers.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah, but you know.
Magic numbers.
Ah, the magic numbers, the Fibonacci numbers.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yes. Yes, and we saw them at Hume Community Garden Centre, didn't we? Which is a wonderful place where we spend a lot of our time. I was going to say leisure time, but it's hard to tell when we're being leisureful and indulging in our hobbies. So we were actually running the stage at the Apple and Pumpkin Day on Sunday, and I think you could safely say they were the stars of the show. But
oh, the apples.
No, idiot.
Pumpkins.
Yeah. No. Well, they were very popular. They'd sold out by the time we got there. No, the Hanami family was starring, and they've got CDs and LPs. They're going back to the LP stage.
Yeah.
We got rid of all our LPs. We're too old for LPs.
We haven't got the equipment anymore, have we?
No, we haven't.
No.
So
wait a minute. There's a link there.
Right.
So what happened to all the old record players? Did you think they got recycled? I don't know.
There is a link.
Yeah.
Because what we learnt from our yesterday's trip to the tip, reuse is the most important aspect of making good use of our resources. And if you can reuse your record player, some people keep them and save them, but if you can reuse them, there are a lot of people doing them up, redoing up charity shops. Some charity shops are doing up electricals. Emmaus down at Salford Shopping Centre, and
opposite Lidl.
Opposite Lidl. We take our old electricals there, and they do them up if they can and resell them.
It's not just that complicated stuff, is it? I'm sitting here in somebody else's shirt that I got from the Help the Heart shop. What's it called? Healthy Hearts.
Can't remember.
Yeah. Heart the Aged.
I think
Help the...
My heart isn't pumping to my brain today.
And trousers. These are somebody else's trousers.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They probably fitted them.
They look very warm, Mike, which is useful. Yes, so and charities are doing a lot of these reuse work, which we found out from yesterday's tip to the trip as well, because we were with a group of older people, I think most of them were older. There were some children with us, but they'd come from a different area. I think their schools were on holiday, and these older people were from the social conscience group of the Quakers. What's the official name for Quakers?
The Society of Friends.
The Society of Friends, which is what I like to think. They're very, very socially conscious.
There's a Friends meeting house in Eccles, which is close to where we are.
Yes.
So those are the people we have contact with.
Yes. And Sandra Dutson, who organised the trip, goes there as well, who we originally met at Incredible Edible, Salford. So there's lots of networking and connections going on there. And Mark Frith was involved in that group, and he used to work at Hume Community Garden Centre. So there's a lot of networking and myceliums going on there.
But just to finish your list, Jane,
Yes.
which one did we do first? Was it, there's reduce, where...
No, reuse
Is that
the
number
main
one?
the main one.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, the other one is reduce, where, you know, you don't have to have 2 pieces of toast. You can have one at a time. So if we
Is that why you're taking longer to eat your breakfast?
Well, it's not just that, is it? It's like I go round switching the lights off. Because then we use less electricity and don't have to pay for it. So, I mean, that makes sense to me, that if we reduced all the stuff we use...
It's not all simple either, is it?
No,
because
I'm just saying that.
turning the lights out may take more energy to turn them off. I used to turn off my computer all the time. Well, I still do, actually. But somebody said, well, it takes more energy to turn it off and on than it does to keep it on.
Yeah, and the starting up takes a lot of energy. Okay, yeah.
So it's not that simple. But the beauty of going round with these people was that they'd been doing it for years and years before even it became trendy, and they're doing all sorts of things. We got to this at the very end of the session, but we got to things that charity shops are taking in some of the things that you can't recycle, and instead of putting them in the black bin, which costs us money, they're taking them away. So one charity shop in Fallowfield was taking in tops of milk bottles, and a lot of people were getting milk delivered in glass, which is available in Salford. We met somebody doing that at climate change meeting, remember?
But don't they have a aluminium sort of foil cover?
Yes.
So you can put that in the brown bin.
Yes.
But if you've got those plastic bottles with plastic tops, it's a different sort of plastic for the top.
Yes.
And they can't go in the same place.
Yes. But we did find out also that you can, if you're using nut milks and things in Tetra Packs, is that the name of it?
That's right.
They have they are divided away, and they have a special recycler for those. So as in our house, we don't use that much milk. We just have to get some in for our tea. We can't cope with the nut milks in our tea.
But can I just say something about Tetra Packs? Because you see, being a beginner, I assume that in the blue bin you put in newspapers, you put in cardboard, and it says you're allowed to put in Tetra Packs. And I think, oh, well, that's because they're cardboard. And what she said was, but Tetra Packs are cardboard that's then lined with a bit of plastic to make them waterproof. And if you think about it, that's a bit obvious, really. You know, you can't have nut milk in your Tetra Pak if it's just made of ordinary cardboard. That isn't going to work. So they don't all put it together. It all goes into the blue bin, and then they have a system where they take the card and the paper and it goes off on one conveyor belt.
And there's a bit of plastic on the top as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a plastic cover and a stopper.
Yeah.
That's right. So it's not as simple as it might seem. But also what they're saying is that you have to be very careful with paper, because old tissues, you might think, well, that'll go in the blue bin, and they can't use it, especially if it's reused already. You know, if you get a box of tissues that says, what do they call it?
Recycled.
Yeah, so it's made from recycled paper already. If it goes in the blue bin, the strands or the bits that it's made up of are too infirm, and they mess up the other paper, and sometimes a whole batch of recycling has to be ditched because there's stuff in it that is just not compatible. Seal cans out of the rubbish.
Yeah.
So that's the first process.
Yeah.
And then they hoik the aluminium cans out with a different procedure.
Yeah.
And the conveyor belt goes round and under, and then it goes down, and there are these giant hammers Well, they're not hammers, like crusher things. You wouldn't want to fall in there, would
the
you?
aluminium is the best and the most expensive thing that they get out of it, and it can be reused in cars and planes and things. So they like aluminium.
Well, I think you have to explain that. The thing is that what they're doing is they're not just recycling it for good, for the good of the planet. That's one thing. But also, if you can do it properly, it makes money, and in theory, it could pay for itself. So when people say, "Oh, recycling, well, we can't afford that," well, maybe we can't, but that's because we haven't got the systems right. And she was telling us if we did it properly and put the right cans in the right bin, so cans go in the brown bin with the bottles, and they can separate the cans from the aluminium and the steel, and then they can sell that material, crush them down and sell it, and then the glass from the bottles, that can be separated out, and they make money from that because they sell it. And really, that's the crucial thing. The things that they can't recycle, I mean, technically, scientifically, everything could be recycled and put back in the system, but it would cost money to do most of it, not make money. But tin cans and bottles, they make money. And that's for us. That's for the residents of Greater Manchester, including Salford.
It was the brown bin that she was focusing on in that building, really. Well, the brown bin. And that's so important, because if you do put things in that shouldn't be there, it breaks the equipment. So can you remember all the things that you can put in the brown bin?
Yeah, you can put in cans, you can put in glass bottles, but not the lids. Put them in the black bin.
And no mirrors or anything like that.
Anything else that's glass, they can't cope with.
No.
So you might think you're doing them a favour by putting a mirror in the brown bin, but you're not. It clogs the machinery up.
I actually didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that, no. And then plastic bottles, but there's at least two types of plastic bottles. The ones you can see through, so they go off on one conveyor belt, and the ones you can't see through, and they're made of a different type of plastic, and they go off another one. So Head and Shoulders goes one way.
Don't advertise. You use Head and Shoulders. I don't use that chemical stuff.
Yeah. Well, shampoo bottles, other makes are available. And, then the see-through bottles. So all those plastic bottles of water that we're drinking, they go another way. Oh, and they showed us a machine, because they have to squash them. When it gets round to the plastic bottles, they have to squash them together to get them on the lorry. Yeah. And there's a machine that punctures them. And some people think it's a really good idea to put a plastic bottle of fizzy drink that's full. And that's not a good idea, because it explodes when it goes in the crusher. And she was saying that these school kids came round and they were hanging over the gantry, looking down into the crushing machine, and that's dangerous enough for a start. And then suddenly one of these plastic bottles exploded and showered them in this brown sauce, and these kids were going, again, that was great, come on, let's do it again. I don't think they got the point, really, that one.
So so that's cans,
and bottles, and plastic bottles, and what's the other thing? So we said no electricals, anything with a wire on it goes to the tip or the black bin. And foil, that's the other thing.
Yes, you can put foil in.
Yeah, so I thought I was being peculiar. If I had just suppose I had a chocolate bar with, a bit of foil round it, and I'd fold that and put it in the brown bin, well, that's good.
Right,
because the foil and the aluminium cans can all get melted down. That's not a problem. Because it's not tin foil. Oh, no. It's aluminium foil. Just like the cans. They're not tin cans. No. They're steel cans. Yeah. So there's a lot to learn, isn't there?
There was a lot to learn, but there's a lot of information around. We're sent stuff annually, I think, of what we can and can't put in the bin. And there's also a website that you can look at about what you can and can't put in the bin.
The other exciting thing was that we were looking at this conveyor belt, and it had big red blobs on it, and she said, well, what happened is somebody must have put a tin of paint in.
Yes.
And that's not a good idea.
paint's not a good idea.
You can take your cans of paint to the tip, and there'll be a sign that says, leave them here, and they'll dispose of the paint. But then what happens is, they've got a way of disposing of the paint, and yes, that can of paint, that can then get recycled once the paint's gone. But whatever you do, don't tip the paint down the grid.
No, we learnt that from United Utilities.
Yeah.
The water
Poisons the water.
Poisons
Don't
the
do that.
rivers, poisons the fish, etc.
So really, she's saying, give the stuff to somebody who knows. Oh, the other thing that people put in brown bins is batteries. Don't put batteries, even though they're metal.
No.
They have to be drained first.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and you see, that is complicated, because somebody told me, take them to Tesco's. Well, you can take them to Tesco's in, say, Burnage, the big Tesco there.
Oh, no, you can in the Salford precinct now. No.
Well, I couldn't find the pot, no.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. They do
Can
say
at
that all
Sainsbury's.
supermarkets
Sainsbury's
take
got one.
batteries, don't they?
Yeah.
But the Tesco's in the precinct, it doesn't do printer cartridges, does it?
I don't know.
You have to find a Tesco's that does. But Jane, you've got some information.
Yes. What I learned from our tip trip yesterday is it's important who you're doing the trip with, and we found out so much from these older people, and they are looking at what's going on in the climate change world, and actually what I was noticing was that I was feeling really poorly, with my ears not functioning properly and my eyes not functioning maximally, and so were they. Some of the older, much older than us, I think, people were suffering with the ability not to function properly. And that's what some of those workers, because they did have workers in separate bits picking stuff out if it was visible along the line, but it wasn't possible for them to catch everything. So we realised that the working conditions for those people that were there weren't ideal, and if we can make it better for them by not putting that stuff in, so they don't have to, they can look from a distance maybe, and cleaning out the stuff so it didn't smell so bad, so all our senses were abused really in that space. Anyhow, what I am also aware that Sandra Dutson gave us this information about how we're being abused by the big companies, and how people who manage our pension funds are using money to block action on climate change, which is very, very concerning to me. So our pension funds are being conned in a way, because the big companies are saying, oh, we are doing something about it, we're doing something about it, but we're not. Is that what you understood this morning from what that piece of paper that Sandra gave us?
Yeah, I think also because it's about the proportions. So if a company, a big oil company like ExxonMobil says, well, we're spending $100 million on renewables and solar power and wind power, that sounds pretty impressive, except they're spending $1 billion on drilling for more oil and fracking and looking for natural gas and using the tar sands of Alberta. So it's about proportions. They're doing a tiny little bit and pretending that that's really important to them, when it's not. It's a fraction of what they actually do. I think that's the message I got.
Yeah, and they're not stopping single-use plastics. As a result, that's what we read on
that's one of the biggest problems. The black bins are filling up with packaging.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense at all.
So we can do something about that. But also being aware that our pension funds are spending a lot of money, giving them to largest investors in public oil, gas and coal companies, are coming from funds, from pension funds in universities, endowments and insurance companies. So if we we say, what I did was write to the manager of our Greater Manchester Pension Fund and said, how much money are you investing my money in coal and things? And they're saying that they are trying to get out of that trap of doing it, but we are responsible, really. So we have the power. That's the thing. We do have the power to, even with large companies.
Well, since we come to the end of the programme, I think that's a good point to close on, because we've talked about the things that we all can do. Use the bins properly, recycle the things that can be used, and make sure that other stuff either goes to the tip or the black bin. What do you say, Jane?
Bye. What do you want me to say?
Well, I don't know. It's bye from Jane, it's bye from Mike, and it's bye from the Hanami family. Here we go.
True.